Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton starting to go at each other's throats. We're going to look at some polling data. We're going to explain polls, and the Republicans, they're getting ready for a knockdown drag out in New Hampshire. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders were for the first time on a debate stage together, going at it head to head. I watched a good portion of the debate, not the whole thing, but I have to admit that it was the most entertaining debate formatically thus far. The reason was simple. The moderators let Hillary and Bernie go at each other. It wasn't like, can I have my chance now? And no, the bell's gone off. You only have 30 seconds. They actually let them go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And on that level, it was good. In my opinion, it's what a debate should in fact look like. They were going after and at each other. So, in case you missed it, which I'm almost 100% certain you did, let me play this little montage, these little clips from ABC.
Just hours ago, shots fired.
Enough is enough. If you've got something to say, say it directly.
Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton facing off for the last time before the New Hampshire primary, clashing in one of their nastiest fights yet.
I am very proud to be the only candidate up here who does not have a super PAC, who is not raising huge sums of money from Wall Street or special interests.
Senator Sanders has said he wants to run a positive campaign. I think it's time to end the very artful smear that you and your campaign have been carrying out in recent weeks.
The Vermont senator doubling down on his attacks against his opponent's Washington ways.
She has the entire establishment, or almost the entire establishment, behind her. That's a fact. I don't deny it.
Clinton firing back.
Senator Sanders is the only person who I think would characterize me, a woman running to be the first woman president, as exemplifying the establishment.
The two candidates sparring again over that Iraq war vote.
Secretary Clinton, who was Secretary of State for 4 years, has more experience. That is not arguable in foreign affairs. But experience is not the only point.
A vote in 2002 is not a plan to defeat ISIS.
So there you got a little flavor of the give and take of Hillary raising her voice. Hillary was starting to get upset, and she should. The latest polling data nationally shows Clinton at 44%, and Bernie Sanders at 42%. That's a statistical tie. It's within the margin of error. She was up 31 points nationally just a few months ago. And now she's about to lose in New Hampshire. The latest polling data out of New Hampshire shows him at around 60 and her at around 30. This is going to be a significant black eye for her. Now, because Bernie Sanders neighbors New Hampshire, it was widely guessed all along that Hillary was going to lose New Hampshire, but then go on to win South Carolina and to win the primaries that came after that, and Bernie Sanders would fade quietly into the sunset and into retirement. That is not going to happen. O'Malley's people, now that he's pulled out of the race, are trending towards Bernie Sanders. Not that it's that many people, but it matters. And Bernie Sanders has got the momentum. Now, I want to explain one last thing about polling, all right? And this is critical. You may get a phone call for a poll. There's so many polls being done right now, there's a high likelihood that you'll actually get one. I got one and missed the call. Now, you may get the call. I advise you to take it if you've got the time. All of that aside, in the third quarter of 2015, Hillary spent $1.9 million on polling data. Think that through with me. $1.9 million. In the last quarter, she spent $720,000. Okay? This is over $2.5 million for polling. That's not about polling data for Iowa or for New Hampshire and South Carolina. You could buy so much media there. That's not what the polling is for. The polling is for messaging, for trending, to understand the hot buttons of voters. When you're spending that kind of money, you can find out what the voters are concerned about on a state-by-state basis. And then you can make your television and your radio buys coordinated with your polling data for that state. And this is where Trump made a fatal mistake. Donald Trump made a huge error, and I think that Ted Cruz, who has spent a lot of money on polling, I think Ted Cruz has used the polling data accurately. We would be foolish to think that polling data is simply to see who's ahead. Donald Trump said something like, why would I pay for polling when the national media are doing it for me? The polling that they were getting was on national popularity. Look, Trump was up by 20 points nationally and he lost Iowa. Trump should have had a better idea of what was going on in Iowa, and he should have done some polling to see what messages resonated with Iowa voters. Then he could have crafted his message to Iowa for Iowa. Are you following me? And that is what Cruz did. Cruz pushed all the buttons as he was doing the polling research for Iowa, and then he went to those buttons once he found out which ones worked, which ones would get his base out, which ones would turn people to become a part of his base. So Hillary has spent more money on polling than the top 6 Republicans combined. That shows she's frantic. You better believe that a lot of these polls are asking questions about her emails, about the possibility of an indictment, about money coming from Saudi Arabia, about how to play the race card, how to play the sex card, how to play the religion card. She, in part, is crafting her message for the presidency on the basis of polling. Her base, likely Democrat voters. And believe me, they're doing polling to independents and to Republicans. Hillary is as well, with the presumption that she's going to win the nomination, and then how she begins to craft her message to either suppress Republican turnout so they just don't come out to vote, or to bring some of the independents and a few straggler Republicans into the fold so that she could win the presidency. Just learn the lesson. Polling is not simply about who's ahead nationally. Polling is about who's ahead on a state-by-state basis and what messaging will work in that state. And Hillary is outspending the top 6 Republicans. She's getting ready to lay out a patchwork of messaging to win the presidency. The problem is a 74-year-old senator from Vermont who seems to be kneecapping her because he's got energy. And she looks like this. Let's close this segment with this scary picture from the front page of Drudge. Oh, my pretty. Friend, we are in the middle of producing a 14-part epic television series called What Would Mohammed Do? Explaining Islam and ISIS to the West. I have a master's degree in international terrorism, and I have studied ancient Islamic texts for over a decade. And we are going to do a very paced and a very scholarly look at Muhammad's life and see the connection of his life to today's headlines. Well, we need your help on 3 levels. 1, we need help with some security measures. 2, we need help with some gear for the studio. And 3, we need help with some computers. I'm inviting you to go to the GoFundMe site that you see on the screen and watch the pilot for episode 1. You'll get a feel for what it's going to be, and I promise you, you're going to be excited. You'll be challenged, and you're going to want your friends to see it. And then after you've seen it, give what you can to help us with this project. Thank you. Bread, circuses, and blood sports. And don't forget the wars. That was the essence of the Roman Empire. The circuses actually were the blood sports. We have football nowadays. We don't have the Colosseum in Rome where people fought to the death. We just have coliseums in America, such as the upcoming Super Bowl. And I confess, all right, I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I confess I watch the Super Bowl every year. And even when it's a blowout, I usually stay to the end because I want to see the new commercials. There's so much money spent on messaging and on commercials, and some of them are really funny. Some of them are really heartwarming. Some of them have turned out to be pretty pro-life. Anyway, this weekend is the Super Bowl, and the oldest starting quarterback in NFL history for a Super Bowl, Peyton Manning, will be leading the Broncos against the Panthers. And I'm by the way, I'm excited that Coldplay, the musical group, is going to be playing at halftime. I'm disappointed that Beyonce is going to be singing. I think that she has been an incredibly bad influence on millions of young girls for obvious reasons. That's where the circuses tend to poison. But for things that will matter for this country's fate and for eternity for many people, because the political leadership of a country does impact the eternities of various human souls because of what happens with the gospel or doesn't happen with the gospel, who is born, who is dead. This Saturday night, ABC is hosting a Republican debate, 8 p.m. on Saturday evening. 7 candidates will be on the stage, and it will not include Carly Fiorina. She did not make the cut, according to ABC. At the time of this recording, she is pleading with them and asking the Republican National Committee to intervene so that she can be on the stage because she says, look, I beat Chris Christie, I beat Kasich, the governor from Ohio, and if I beat them in Iowa, why shouldn't I be on the stage? We'll see how it plays out. But at this point, Donald Trump is trouncing everyone in New Hampshire. We spoke about polling in the last segment. If you want to see just an incredible poll, go a machine, a mechanism, go to Real Clear Politics and look at this poll. It allows you to wave your cursor over the screen and to see the daily averages of all the polls, the aggregate of all the polls being recorded in America, or most of them, and then put in real time. So as of right now, Friday evening, Donald Trump is at around 32% in New Hampshire. Rubio is around 14%, right? So Donald Trump is beating him 2-1, according to the average of the polls. Ted Cruz is in third place with around 10 or 11%. And guess who's trying to make a comeback in New Hampshire and bringing out the family to do it?